and so they're working in the maximum hours. For instance, they're doing Sydney, Bali and back. That's about a 17-hour night. That's very, very fatiguing. The pilots fortunately have an industrial agreement and the upper limit of the Civil Aviation Order agreement.
This practice of making Jetstar crews fly return shifts rather than staying overnight like pilots was raised by Nick Xenophon in the Senate inquiry into airline safety earlier this year.
When cabin crew tell me that if there's an emergency, they don't think they'll be able to cope at the end of a 17 or 18 or 20-hour shift, then it really gives you cause for concern.
And concerns about fatigue are not confined to Jetstar's international flights. Lateline has obtained over 60 incident reports that show at least 37 crew members have filed complaints this year to Jetstar management about fatigue and exhaustion after flying the Sydney to Perth and Sydney to Darwin routes. They've also raised serious concerns about the cabin crew's ability to deal with emergencies.
I believe that if there was an emergency situation, crew would not be alert enough to respond accordingly.
It is unsafe, and I am concerned that it will only be when something unfortunate happens that something will be done about this.
Flight attendants are also worried about their own safety after doing shifts that cross from day into night into morning.
I was afraid I might have a car accident on the way home from duty.
Driving home after this duty is extremely dangerous, and I found myself almost falling asleep at the wheel.
And while Jetstar is pushing its Australian-based crews hard, it's the foreign-based crews who are under the most strain.
Bạn cần một ngày nghỉ.
Bay cùng Jetstar giữa thành phố Hồ Chí Minh và Hải Phòng.
A third of Jetstar staff are employed overseas. Their Bangkok cabin crew are employed by a company called Tour East Thailand. Lateline has obtained a copy of the employment contract for the Thai-based cabin crews. It states that crew can work shifts of up to 20 hours long. But as this contract shows, in effect there are no limits to the hours they can be forced to work.
The planned limit and operational extensions may be extended by the employer.
This clause is not in any contracts for Jetstar's Australian-based crews.
Not only is a clause like that unconscionable, it just seems incredibly unsafe. How will a crew be able to cope with an emergency if they've been required to work in excess of 20 hours in just one shift? It's something that doesn't apply to Australian cabin crew for good reason, and it should apply to foreign-based cabin crew who are doing work here in Australia.
Jetstar declined to be interviewed for this story, but in a statement tonight said there are clear limitations on hours.
Jetstar has clearly established duty limitations that are consistently applied regardless of where our cabin crew are based.
Jetstar's Thai-based flight attendants get paid a base wage of 258 Australian dollars a month. Each hour they fly, they get another $7 an hour plus allowances. They don't get paid for sick leave and have half the annual leave of their Australian colleagues. While on annual leave, they get paid less than normal. That's $7 Australian dollars an hour on top of their base wage becomes just $9 a day. Annika, as she's asked to be called, says foreign-based cabin crew are under immense pressure.
Asian-based crew aren't unionised, and they're constantly threatened with the non-renewal of their contracts should they speak out about anything to do with their jobs.
And there's an extraordinary financial disincentive not to speak out. If Thai-based crew quit their jobs early or are sacked, they can be forced to pay back up to 4.5 months of their base wage. In its statement to Lateline, Jetstar also said,
Some of our international cabin crew are required to pay a bond as a compensation for investment in training if a cabin crew member leaves within 2 years of employment. This is a locally based arrangement that reflects the local market conditions.
On April the 22nd, 5 Thai-based crew, exhausted from a series of domestic and international flights, pulled out of a flight between Sydney and Melbourne, citing fatigue. They were concerned they wouldn't be able to respond to an emergency situation should one arise. In response, they got this letter from their employer, Tour East Thailand, threatening them with the sack.
Whilst illness, etc. is accepted by your employer, poor time management is not. TET requires from you an undertaking that you will not repeat these behaviours in the workplace.
This letter castigated the crew members for causing damage to the reputation of their employer, Tour East Thailand, who hire cabin crew for Jetstar. But Tour East Thailand is unlikely to lose its contract with Jetstar. Qantas owns 37% of Tour East Thailand.
On the face of it, it seems as though the Bangkok-based crew are being looked after by an independent contractor at arm's length from Qantas, when in fact Qantas has an iron grip on this company. It's a pretty mean and tricky set of operations, and Qantas really needs to come clean on this.
Jetstar cabin crew fear more and more flight attendants will be hired under this model. Foreign-based, subcontracted, with lower wages and poorer conditions.
It's all about the money. It's about making as much money as they can. We're constantly cutting corners and pushing the crew as that's the only area where we can save.
Steve Kinane, Lateline.
In its statement to Lateline tonight, Jetstar said it has made considerable investment in its fatigue management systems, and it says Jetstar is continuing to invest and build in this important area in line with a global best practice risk management approach, adding that Jetstar continues to assess their operations in light of their fatigue management system that shows safety is always the first priority. The full statement and responses to specific questions will be posted on the Lateline website. An